Welcome to the video lecture. In this lecture, we will learn about personality and theories of personality. In this video lecture on personality, in the study of organizational behavior, we often focus on specific processes like how people perceive information, how they learn, or what motivates them. However, to truly understand human behavior in the workplace, we must look at the whole main concept. This is where personality comes into play. The term personality originates from Latin word persona, which referred to the mask worn by actors in ancient theatres. This suggests that personality is, in part, the role an individual displays to the public. However, for modern psychologists, it is much more than a mask. It is a dynamic system describing the growth and development of a person's entire psychological makeup. It is an aggregate whole, meaning it is a greater than just the sum of its parts. When we study personality, we are looking at three specific areas. First, external appearance and behavior. Second, the inner awareness of the self as an organizing force. And third, the measurable traits that define an individual. Why do we start with this whole main concept? Because personality acts as a filter. It affects how every other psychological process like motivation or perception is expressed. By the end of this session, you should be able to understand about define personality and understand its roots. Compare between various psychological definitions of personality. Identify the core characteristics and nature of personality. You can understand about analyze the major factors, heredity, environment, and situation that shape personality development. Evaluate the four major theories of personality: psychoanalytic, socio-psychological, trait theory, and self theory. To apply this concept to understand individual differences in organizational settings. To understand the concept of personality, we must look at it as an internalized system. It includes aspects of ourselves that we are born with our heredity, as well as those we learn through experience. It is a set of characteristics that uniquely influence our thoughts, our motivations, and our behaviors across various situations. Let us look at how some of the leading thinkers in the field of define this concept. Gordon Allport famously described it as the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his unique adjustments to his environment. Note the word dynamic. This means personality is not a static. It is constantly evolving and organizing itself. Raymond Cattell offered a more functional definition, stating that personality is that which permits a prediction of what a person will do in a given situation. If we know a person's personality, we can to some extent predict their behavior. Skipman and Kanak take a slightly different approach, suggesting that personality is a set of inner psychological characteristics that both determine and reflect how a person responds to their environment. The question, what exactly characterizes personality? We can break its nature down into four essential points. First, we have personality traits. Personality is essentially the sum of different traits such as sociability, emotional stability, and objectivity. These are the building blocks of who we are. Second, Personality reflects individual differences. No two people are exactly alike, while many people may share a single trait. For instance, being high in sociability. The specific combination of traits in each person is unique. This allows managers and marketers to categorize individuals into groups based on dominant characteristics. Third, personality is consistent and enduring. Generally, people do not change who they are from one day to the next. This stability is why we can rely on a person's behavior over time. However, this is our fourth point: personality can change. While it is enduring, major life events can alter it. Think about the impact of a major career promotion, a divorce, or the birth of a child. These shocks to the system can lead to long-term shifts in an individual's personality structure. Here is question arises: why should a manager care about personality? Why not just focus on a worker's skills? So, the answer lies in how people interact. How you ever wondered why some employees seem to naturally cause tension or aggression in their colleagues, while others consistently evoke sympathy and support? Often, the answer is not what they are doing, but their personality traits. These are three primary reasons personality is vital in the workplace. Interpersonal influence. Personality dictates how we communicate. Some personalities encourage open, honest dialogue, and while others perhaps unintentionally discourage it. Reaction to stress. Not everyone handled pressure the same way. Some individuals remain calm under several stress, while others become overwhelmed by tension. This is a direct reflection of their emotional stability. Coping styles. Even when two people feel the same amount of stress, their style of coping will differ based on their personality. One might seek social support, while another might withdraw with the solve the problem alone. Now that we understand what personality is and why it matters, we must ask, where does it come from? So, the first major factor is heredity. The heredity approach argues that the ultimate explanation of an individual's personality lies in the molecular structure of our genes. Characteristics such as physical stature, facial attractiveness, temperament, muscle composition, and even energy level are often inherited from our parents. Research into heredity usually follows three paths. First, scientists look at the behavior of very young children to see which traits are present from birth. Second, they study identical twins who were separated at birth. If these twins grow up to have similar personalities despite different environments, it suggests that a strong genetic component. Then, third, research shows that job satisfaction tends to remain consistent for individuals even when they change jobs or companies, suggesting that our internal set point for happiness may be partially genetic. While gene provides the blueprint, the environment builds the house. The environment includes the culture we are raised in, our early conditioning, and the norms of our family and social groups. Culture is particularly powerful. It establishes the norms, attitudes, and values that are passed from our generation to the next. For example, some cultures place a high value on independence and competition, while others emphasize cooperation and group harmony. Every culture trains its members to behave in ways that are acceptable to the group. However, we must be careful. Can we assume that everyone from the same culture will have the same personality? Answer: certainly not. Even within a single culture, individuals differ because of their unique family backgrounds and life experiences. Culture defines the range of experience a personality is likely to have, but it does not dictate their entire personality. Immediate environmental influence is the family. Families influence us most during our early formative years. This influence is shaped by many variables: the family's socio-economic status, their size, their religion, and even their geographic location. A key part of this is the identification process. According to psychologist Walter Michael, this happens in three ways. The child perceives a similarity in behavior between themselves and their parents. The child develops a motive or desire to be like the parent. The child eventually adopts actual attributes and traits of the parent. Beyond the family, we have social factors and socialization process. This is how we acquire the wide range of behaviors that are acceptable in society. It starts with the mother-infant bond but expands to include siblings, peers, school friends, and eventually work colleagues. Each of these groups helps synthesize and absorb the traits that eventually make up our adult personality. The final factor is the situation. An individual's personality, while generally stable, can change in response to different demands. Think about it. Do you act the same way at a funeral as you do at a party? Probably not. Different situations call for different aspects. Our personality to come to the forefront. Furthermore, specific traumatic events or major life milestones can fundamentally alter a person's psychological structure. A person who was once very outgoing might become withdraw after a significant personal trauma. Moving into the major theories, we begin with Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory. This theory is built on the belief that humans are motivated by unseen unconscious forces, then by conscious thought. Freud proposed that personality is the result of struggle between three interacting forces. First, the ID. This is the unconscious part of our personality. It is the source of all psychic energy and operates on the pleasure principle. It wants immediate gratification for basic biological needs like hunger and thirst. It does not care about logic or moral. It only wants to avoid tension. And the second, the ego. The ego operates on the reality principle. It is the conscious logical part of the personality. Its job is to find a way to satisfy the ID's desires in a way that is realistic and socially acceptable. It often has to postpone gratification until an appropriate time. And the third, the superego. This is our moral compass. It represents the social and personal norms, our conscience. It tells the ego what is right and what is wrong, acting as a ethical constraint on our behavior. In this model, the ego is constantly trying to balance the impulsive demands of the ID and the idealistic demand of superego. While this theory is famous, It is criticized in organizational studies because it is difficult to measure scientifically. The second theory is socio-psychological theory. It emphasizes that the interdependency between the individual and society. There are two major differences. First, social variables, and these variables are seen as the primary shaper of personality. And the second, behavior is considered consciously. Man knows what he wants and his behavior is directed effort to meet those needs. A notable model in this category comes from Karen Horney, who suggested that people develop three interpersonal orientations to deal with anxiety. First, complaint. These people are different on others and move towards them for security. And the second, aggressive. These individuals are motivated by need for power and move against others. And the last one, detached. These people value self-sufficiency and move away from others. For a manager, understanding these orientations is incredibly useful. Knowing if an employee is complain or aggressive, helping in tailoring communication and leadership styles. Trait theory is perhaps the most practical approach for behavioral science. It defines a trait as any differentiation, relatively enduring way in which one individual differs from another. This theory makes three basic assumptions. Traits are common to many people, but the amount of the trait varies. Example, everyone has some level of friendliness, but some have much more than others. Traits are relatively stable and have a universal effect on behavior. Traits can be measured through behavioral indicators and tests. Trait theory is quantitative. It uses personality tests to find correlations between specific traits and job performance. While it is very descriptive and help us categorize people, some critics argue it is not analytical enough. It tells us what a person is but not necessarily why they are that way. The final theory we will discuss is self theory, often associated with Carl Rogers. This is a Gestalt approach, meaning it looks at the person as a whole interrelated system. Self theory focuses on the self concept, the organized set of perceptions we have about ourselves. There are four key components to this self image. This is how we see yourself. It is your identity based on your beliefs about who you are. Ideal self. This is how you would like to be. There is often a gap between our self image and our ideal self. Looking glass self. This is your perception of how others see you. It is important to note this is not how people actually see you, but how you think they see you. And the fourth one, real self. This is who you actually are, regardless of your perceptions. In an organization, if a person's self-image is very different from their real self, or if their ideal self is impossible to reach, it can lead to frustration and poor performance. To conclude, personality is a multifaceted concept that serves as the foundation for individual behavior in any organization. We have seen that it is not just a collection of traits, but a dynamic system shaped by our biology, our upbringing, and our social environment. We have explored the ID, the ego, and the superego of this psychoanalytic approach. Social orientations like being compliant or aggressive, the measurable traits that allows us to predict behavior, the self-concept that defines our internal identity, Understanding these theories allows managers to better predict how employees will react to stress, how they will work in team, and how they can be effectively motivated. Thank you for your attention and engagement throughout this presentation. We hope it has provided valuable insights into self-development.